Hi, my name is Dawn, like she said. I was born and raised in Hollywood, California. My dad was a chef, and my mom worked at Hanna-Barbera Cartoon Studios. I documented the LA punk scene starting in 1976. I was able to work at the cartoon studio, and that was how I was able to buy my camera. It was a Canon FTB 35 millimeter, and because I was in high school, I could take photography and develop and print my photos at school. My photography teacher would look at my work and ask, when was of the Weirdos? He's like, who's that? And I'm like, it's the Weirdos. They were like playing The Mask. And he's like, it looks like crap. But I kept shooting and I kept printing. It didn't matter what he said. Like she mentioned, I was a US correspondent for White Stuff magazine. It was a fanzine in London. It's basically about Patti Smith. And it was created by Sandy Robertson. I also shot David Bowie, the Queen, the Germs, the Skulls, the Mumps, the Screamers, the Zeros, which there's a documentary of theirs coming out this year, and I have some work in that. I shot the last Sex Pistols show in 1978 in San Francisco at Winterland. I was able to go to London when I graduated from high school. I was good friends with Darby Crash. One of the things we would do back in the day was go to the Capitol Records swap meet, and we would either he would get there first or I would get there first, and we would go and scout out all the Bowie stuff, and then go look to see what we're going to buy that week. I've interviewed Kim Fowley for White Stuff magazine. That was pretty crazy. If Rodney Bingenheimer hadn't been there at the interview, I don't know what would have happened with Kim because he had stories. In 2004, I was able to reconnect with Alice Bagg. Someone at where I was working at the time had told me that Alice had a website. So I went on the website and looked up, and there was one of the photos I had taken of them at Hollywood Forever. And I reached out to her and we reconnected. I brought because I kept all my negatives from then. They were in like a notebook. And I said, I'll bring the negatives. And she was kind of confused what it was. But when we got there and she started looking at all of them, she's like, this is a gold mine. This is like, do you understand what you have? And I'm like, yeah, a lot of pictures no one wants to see. And she's like, no, that's not true. So from that, Alice got me a group show with John Weiner and Jesse Xerox at the Anti-Market, and that was the first show I had where I was able to exhibit the photos I took back then. One of the photos from Hollywood Forever became a record cover for them. It was a compilation. This is the Weirdos book. We printed it this small, and then when we would get it, I'd repackage it and make it look like an import 45. So it'd be in a little plastic sleeve, and this was the record. I was in Alice's Violence Girl. We have a photo from that. And then this is Live at the Mass that Brendan Mullen put out. I have like about 5 or 6 photos. The Weirdos. And then there's also, I used to hang out with Nikki Beat a lot. And when you hung out with Nikki, you always had to make sure you had your camera and it had film. So there's photos of him teaching Pat Smear how to play drums. And Pat Smear was in the Germs and then became in Nirvana and then Foo Fighters. And a funny Pat Smear story is when we went to the Sex Pistols in '78, we had no place to stay. And one of the Weirdos told us that we could stay in this warehouse. So it was myself, the person I went up there with, and Pat Smear. And one of the things was we couldn't use the bathroom until the people left the next morning. And Pat went out to the balcony and is peeing over the side and goes, "Ha ha ha, girls, you can't do that, but I can." Yeah. I would pretty much go to the mask every weekend. And this was like during the time when we had the Hillside Strangler going on. So it was like when I would leave the mask, I would run to my car and get in and like look in the back seat and make sure there was no scary people. I also worked at Bump Records during high school. That was another way I could make money to buy film and my photography stuff. Also, I was friends with Kid Congo Powers, who has his new book out. But when I knew Kid, he went by Brian Tristan. And we would all show up at the Whiskey and all hang out. Also, when I was shooting, I would have to get to wherever venue, be it the Whiskey or the Starwood, to go stake out a spot, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be able to get any good shots. And you were competing with another photographer I don't want to name. It was really kind of hard. But that's about it. Yeah. Thank you.